Alrighty, thank you everybody for getting on the call this morning. Today we're going to be talking about drip marketing, specifically email drip marketing, and how you can utilize it within your practice, what kind of technologies you need to get started, and some tips and tricks to help make you successful right out of the gate. So let's go ahead and get going. I wanted to talk a little bit about the email drip concept, kind of give you an overview before we delve into some of the more detailed technology points. The whole concept is that we're using multiple touches for a slow but steady behavior modification. So with each email, with each touch, we're moving people closer to fulfilling the call to action, which is to ultimately get down to a face-to-face meeting so we can sit down and talk some business. These types of systems typically have a fairly large sales cycle, and what I mean by that is from the start, from the time that they enter this email drip system to the time you're actually sitting down writing business with them is on average about 3 to 4 months. It's really kind of a nurturing program in the sense that you're holding their hand through the whole process digitally. That being said, people who are in these programs sometimes will take up to a year and a half to finally sit down and write business with you. But the great part about these programs is that even though it's highly process oriented and very rigid as far as being frequent and precise and consistent, it really doesn't take a whole lot of extra effort, and it doesn't really cost a whole lot of extra on your part to go ahead and get those people to sit back down with you or re-engage or even to engage from the begin with. So here's how it works a little bit. So you have a database full of clients or prospects or a list of emails that you've collected from potential or existing clients. And those email addresses are going to get uploaded into a CRM or similar organizational system to distribute those emails out in a mass sense. So somebody, a person, is going to organize those specific emails on certain days, and they're going to go out and each email is going to touch this person, and they're going to kind of go through the see, feel, do process. And what I mean by that is they're going to see your email, that your brand, your message. They're going to feel a certain way about it, hopefully positive if you're connecting with them with the right message, and then they're going to take action. And that action may be able to just be more receptive to the next email, or it may be to fulfill the call to action. And the more times, the more frequent you do this process, the closer they're going to get to fulfilling that call to action. I'd say on average you're looking, like I said, about 3 to 4 months down the road, so probably about 12 touches or so with these guys. And then usually it's a webinar that really triggers them to get going, to pick up the phone and book that face-to-face meeting or phone call with you. So really what our goals are ultimately is behavior modification through frequency in the see, feel, do format. So we want to consistently touch people and bridge those channels, going from something that's very primitive and impersonal, such as an email, to something that's face-to-face meeting. And we're really only moving them one channel at a time. So from the emails, we want to move them to the webinars. And then from the webinars, we're going to move them to a phone call. And then from the phone call, we're going to move to the face-to-face meeting. The reason this process works is because people aren't necessarily comfortable sitting down with you right off the bat. They want to get to know you. They want the message to speak to them. Once it's kind of spoken to them a little bit, then maybe they'll hop on that webinar. They'll take the 10-15 minutes out of their day to listen to what you have to say, to listen to some of the solutions to their problems, to their pains that you have. Once that speaks to them, and this is where we find is really the converter tool, is that'll get them to call in, or you can call them after the webinar because you'll have their info, and you can give them a call because you saw that they were on your webinar, and then they're really engaged at this point. They're ready to sit down and have that face-to-face meeting to ultimately be fulfilling the call to action that we're looking for. So a little bit about what you're going to need to do this from a technology standpoint. The content is all stuff that SAG is going to provide with you. All that we ask is that you send your business to us in return for all the content and the systems that we'll set up for you. You're going to need some organization. We're going to go into that a little bit more detail here about how to set up the schedule and stuff, but you'll need a person in charge of scheduling out the email drips and of keeping the system organized. Then you're going to need an email drip service. This could be a CRM that you're already using, such as Salesforce or Redtail or any other number of particular CRMs that are out there that I know you guys use. Or it could be something a little more simplistic that's more geared towards just email marketing. So Constant Contact, EmailBrain, NetAtlantic, there's many of these other guys out there. You don't have to go with one of these, but these are just some of the big ones that I usually mention if you're not familiar with these systems. I'll talk a little bit about each one. Constant Contact is perhaps the most reputable source, and they get great penetration in the sense that if you send an email out using Constant Contact, it's going to go straight to somebody's inbox. It's not going to go into their junk. It's not going to get filtered out by their spam filter. They're a very reputable company, but they've earned that reputation through being very strict with spamming. So if your unsubscribe rate, your opt-out rate gets above a certain percentage, they're going to shut you down and they're going to blacklist you. So if you have a list that you're not so sure of, maybe run it through one of these other companies on a single run to clean it up so that you get all those opt-outs out of there, because chances are your first and second mass emails that you send out, they're going to have your highest opt-out rate, and everybody else after that is going to be willing to receive your email marketing and then drop it into Constant Contact. If you're just worried about that, go with EmailBrain, NetAtlantic, or one of those other services, because they could really care less about opt-out rates. They're still going to provide you with the service. They're very cost-effective. EmailBrain, I know, is pretty inexpensive. It's going to be all tiered costing, so you're going to say if your database is 0 to 500 contacts, you'll have tier 1, 500 to 1,000. You'll have tier 2, 1,000 to 5,000. You'll have tier 3, and all of them are fairly inexpensive, ranging from about $30 to $100 a month, depending on your capacity needs. Which are the number of emails in your database that you're sending out to. So once you've established your organizational system, your software that's going to send the emails out, you're going to need a system or services that'll do the webinars for you. I know all you guys do Join.me, and those are great for doing one-on-ones in small groups, but to do the mass webinars, I would highly recommend going with either GoToMeeting or WebEx. Today, we're actually using GoToMeeting right now. I'm highly familiar with that software, so if you have any questions, I can help you run through that. WebEx I've used a few times. As far as platforms, they're both very similar. They're just arranged and laid out a little bit differently. So either one, both good softwares to check out. GoToMeeting, you can do a low end for pretty inexpensive. You're looking at $100 or less a month, depending on the capacity, again, how many people you want to be able to max out your webinar size. It's just going to depend on how many people are hopping on that call with you. Last but not least, you're going to need practice. And I tell everyone, before you do a webinar, do a test webinar. Just run through it, do a pretend one, get your secretary, your assistant, somebody to hop on the call as if they were part of the audience. Run through it and practice so you're familiar with doing the software, you're familiar with the process, so you're not doing it first time when you got a bunch of actual potential clients on the call. Just good idea to have some practice. Same with the email drips. Put yourself on the list. Do a test drip just so you're familiar with how everything works. They're all pretty simple, but when it comes to technology, it's always best to be a little bit more in the know and familiar with it, so you don't have to go into panic mode when something goes not how you anticipated it on your first run there. So once you purchase your software or your CRM, you're going to upload your database of emails, and that's going to be a list, either an XLS or CSV or whatever happened format. And I'll talk about formats here in a second. You're going to template your emails out or just use the HTML emails that we provide for you. I know in Constant Contact, they literally have hundreds of templates that are ready to go. They're really nice and clean, and you can put your attachments in there and everything without too much hassle. It's literally, I think, about 4 or 5 click process between choosing an email, copying the content, and then sending it out to the list that you've chosen. Otherwise, you can always click use my own HTML and simply upload the HTML emailers that we provide you with. Different situations are going to warrant, different necessities as far as using HTML or templates. But for the most part, it's pretty easy to figure out, and it's just 2 or 3 clicks to run through the process. At that point in time, you're going to want to schedule out drips as far as you're going to want to schedule out these mass emails to go out to your database. I would recommend doing them at about 1 month segments. So you're going to do a 1 month schedule, say for the month of July or the month of August, and then at the beginning of the next month, schedule it out again. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to stay organized and what things to look for as far as scheduling. These softwares are all going to super keep you organized. It's going to be awesome once you get the hang of it. There is a little bit of a learning curve. So like I said, do some practice before you actually go ahead and send all that stuff out or do it the first run. And all these softwares are going to monitor your opt-ins and opt-outs in the sense that they're going to be dynamic. So as far as any legal spam issues, you're never going to run into anything because they all monitor that very well. If somebody opts out or opts in, your list is going to change and the software is going to know how to handle that without you having to press any buttons at all. So just a kind of formatting technical standpoint, most of the time when you're uploading your list into one of these softwares, it's going to go in the format of email address, first name, last name, and then the email type. And what email type is you're either going to have a text type or text only. There's going to be that's kind of the default. And then an HTML. If there's an AOL or a Comcast account in there, I would recommend using the text format just because AOL or Comcast, they do have a tendency to kind of trap some of those emails, especially if you're using EmailBrain or you're not using Constant Contact, one of the other services. The text default will more likely get into their inbox than get caught by their spam filter just because AOL or Comcast has really stringent settings when it comes to receiving emails or mass emails in particular. So here's an example of a drip procedure. This is just a basic procedure. We'll go over a couple different concepts as far as drip process. You're going to want to drip out about 1 email a week to 1 email a day. You don't want to do more than 1 a day because too high of a frequency will become irritating to your recipients and they'll be more likely to click that opt-out button and then you can't market email-wise to them again. So we want to make sure we're not, you're going to get a few opt-outs, you always will. That's just how the game works. But as far as frequency, just try and keep it so it's not so frequent that you're becoming a nuisance to them. You're sending 3 or 4 emails a day and they're just going, you know what, this is too much information for me to handle. I don't want to receive all this. This is junk. So you don't want to do more than 1 a day, but I would say also you don't want to do less than 1 a week because you do want to stay in the forefront. You want to stay active, saying, hey, you know what, I'm here. Let's talk about this issue. Let's talk about that, so that you are in the forefront of their minds when they are ready to make that decision to move to the next level, which would be hopping on one of your webinars. So for example, what you could do is maybe week A, first week in the month, do the monthly newsletter that we send out to you guys. Maybe week B, you do your webinar invite. Week C, you could send out a personal article or a pertinent article that you found online, something from a reputable source such as the Wall Street Journal, The Economist. Also that week you could actually do the webinar itself, and then maybe a holiday email. This is an example. You don't have to stick to the schedule. I'm going to go over another type of methodology that you could approach as well with some real exact dates that you can actually plug and play for next month if this is something you'd want to get started with. So that being said, here's the themed hypothetical schedule. Again, we're going to go with the monthly newsletter. Let's say we're going to send out that August 8th. We're going to do 1 a week. So the next week we're going to send out, we're going to do the inflation. We're going to do August is going to be inflation month. So we're going to talk about how inflation can affect their income and in the future, especially say 10, 20 years down the line. This is a piece that Senior Advisor Group can provide you with, and it's something you can drip out to all your clients. It's all carrier-approved material. So say we'll send this one out the following week. After that, we're going to want to send out a webinar invite. We're going to try and get them on a webinar. This is something that I highly recommend doing, is just doing one webinar every month, one mass webinar. When it comes to one-on-one webinars, do them at the client's leisure at the time that they want to receive it. It's a real easy thing to do on Join.me, but do the mass webinars at least once a month. So say, the next week we're going to do the webinar itself. All this content is content that Senior Advisor Group can provide you with. We just ask, like I said, that you send your business our way, and I think we can provide you with all the material that you need to set this up within your practice. So say Saturday morning, we're going to do that particular webinar on inflation, and then we're going to send out a personal or an article written by, this one happens to be from Wall Street Journal, talking about inflation or deflation, what kind of threats are going on out there. Just something to follow up with them, keep them interested. You may have mentioned something like this on the webinar. Send the article out so everyone can check it out themselves. So that's an example of how your August schedule could go out. Like I said, on the 8th, we'd have the newsletter. On the 16th, we have the inflation piece. On the 21st, we'd have the invite itself for the webinar. On the 25th, we'll actually be hosting the webinar. And then on the 29th, we go ahead and send out the pertinent article to kind of follow up, to give everybody kind of the hey, you know what, here's some of the stuff we talked about. Don't hear it from me, hear it from the Wall Street Journal. So some tips when you're coming up with these schedules. I would say always avoid Sunday mornings when you're doing webinars. Reason being is that if your potential client is going to go to church, they're going to go to church before they're going to hop on your webinar. You just can't compete with that. So just avoid Sunday mornings altogether for webinars. Also, avoid any out-of-town type of holidays. Labor Day weekend, for example. I wouldn't bother doing a webinar with Labor Day weekend, because typically that's a kind of weekend where, and especially retirees, are going to be out of town. They're not going to even be around. They're not going to be near a computer. That being said, there are some very in-town holidays as well. For example, Thanksgiving, Christmas, maybe the day after Christmas or the day after Thanksgiving is also a great day to do it, because they're home, they don't really have anything planned, their family may still be around, or they're taking off, so they have some open time. One of our advisors had a very successful out-of-town holiday webinar on the day after Thanksgiving, on Black Friday, the morning of. Had a lot of attendees because a lot of people were around to just, hey, I have an extra 10, 15 minutes, I might as well hop on this call and see what this guy has to say. So those are the types of things to look for when scheduling out webinars in accordance with holidays. Always give about 3 days minimum between your webinar invite and hosting the actual webinar, and no more than 7 days. So 3 days so they have time to prepare and realize, hey, you know what, I'm gonna plan to attend this webinar. No more than 7 days, because if you're gonna hold it a week out, chances are they're gonna forget, or that's a little too much time for them to say, hey, next week I'm going to plan on doing this, and then something comes up and they change their mind. So 3 to 7 days is a good range between actually emailing out that invite and hosting of the actual webinar. And like I said, always very important, do a practice run. You want to familiarize yourself with this technology, with GoToMeeting, with WebEx, whatever you happen to be using. Get your assistant to hop on as if they were a recipient. Because trust me, Murphy's Law says if something can go wrong, it will. It's always best to be able to react quickly and be familiarized with the software that you need to, get the job done in the actual time you're going to host one of these webinars. As far as the material that SAG provides, we do emailers that are digital, PDFs to follow up with those, and then the PowerPoint presentations to actually present the clients with for your webinars. We also do the monthly newsletters. We got some videos coming out for you guys, so we got all sorts of content that'll keep you guys full as far as your schedule to do these. For example, that August inflation themed plan or schedule that I had in there, you could do that, implement it next month if you want. We have all the materials provided to you to get that done. So after the webinar, feel free to call in, and we can help set up some of that stuff for you. So let's do a little bit of review. We talked about the email drip concept. What we're really trying to accomplish here. We want to have the frequency, so we're consistently touching these people that stay in the back of their minds, so that when they are ready to pick up the phone and make the call, we're there for them. And we're also taking the channel bridging technique in the sense that we're moving from emails to webinars, webinars to phone calls to face-to-face meetings, because we're really holding their hands through the process, so we're moving them closer to that trust factor, so that they're willing to actually pick up the phone or meet with us face-to-face, because somebody who you've only engaged upon email probably isn't quite ready to meet face-to-face. They need to hit that webinar in between. They need to make that phone call so that they're slowly getting ready to do business with you. Like I said before, on average about 3 to 4 months from start to writing business on average with these guys, up to a year and a half. We've had guys write business with people who've been in their email drip systems for a long time. So it is a process. Just look at it as what it is. It's a marketing process. You got to be consistent with it. You got to be frequent with it. Always you want to have an answer your call to action. So at the end of each webinar, make sure you have, hey, you know what, call in this 1-800 number, mention your number, mention what you want them to do. Every piece that goes out, you need to have some call to action, asking them to do this, maybe get on your webinar if it's an emailer, or from a webinar, calling into 1-800 number, or after your phone call, let's schedule a face-to-face meeting. So as far as technology needs, we talked about the email drip software, or unless you have an existing CRM, Constant Contact, Email Brain, NetAtlantic. There's tons of other ones out there. Feel free to look around, do some costing. Like I said, most of them are going to be tiered in the sense that 0 to 500 email addresses is going to be $30 a month, for example. I don't know if it's going to depend on your system you're using. 500 and up, they're going to be tiered. Tiered costing for how large you want to send out as far as those mass emails are concerned. Webinar software, highly recommend GoToMeeting. You can check out WebEx as well. Both are very reputable softwares. Again, familiarize yourself with that beforehand. As far as scheduling, we talked about the basic concept. We talked about doing a themed month, and you can actually employ that exact map or whatever, if you want to call it, that exact schedule for August if you like next month. We talked about the frequency requirements as far as doing it one a week, but no more than one a day. And then a few tips, avoid Sunday mornings, avoid out-of-town holidays. Go ahead and give 3 to 7 days between your webinar invites and your actual hosting of the webinar. So I know it covered a lot of material. I wanted to keep it real concentrated for you guys. So we're pretty much wrapped up here. If you have further questions, I know we can talk about a little more detail. Feel free to call us, 1-800-256-1696. We're here to help. We're here to grow your business. We have all the materials necessary to provide you with to get this stuff done. The only factor in between is going to be you. And like I said before, we just ask that you send your business our way to keep that mutual interest relationship. So thanks for getting on the call, everybody, and have a great day.